Laura, thanks for joining Spectator TV. You've written a brilliant piece for Spectator Life about why chivalry is dead. Do you think it can ever come back from the grave?
Yes, I think it can. Look, I'll be honest, I don't think it's completely dead. I think I may have said in the article it's actually incinerated. And sometimes it can feel like that, but it's not completely dead. Look, my teenage sons, I told them about what happened to me, and they were both astonished. They said they still offer their seats for ladies, for the elderly. So, some people are still doing it.
Let's dive into what happened to you. You had a horrible experience on the tube. It wasn't just that this gentleman, although I think that's a rich description of him, probably too generous. It's not just that he wouldn't give up his seat, he wouldn't move his bag.
I know, it was so funny. I actually thought he was joking. So it might seem a bit petty to hook a whole article onto one experience, but what it was for me was this nail in the coffin of chivalry. So picture the scene. It's hot. I mean, it's like a furnace. It's the underground. I've been wearing heels all day. Got a little bit of sciatica. I'm tired. And there were no spare seats. But this one gentleman had a suitcase and a bag on a seat next to him. So I got to him and I politely say, "Excuse me, would you mind moving your bag so I can sit down?" And he took a slug from his can of beer and he looked at me and he said, "No." I said, "What, really?" I thought it was a joke. And he said, "It's a priority seat for luggage." Which it was, but nothing makes you feel like more of an old bag than when a man won't move his bag for you. I just thought it was incredible because I wasn't asking for his seat. I was asking for his suitcase's seat. And actually next to him was a young lady, nothing to do with him. And she sprang out of her seat and she said, "Oh, would you like my seat?" But I've got to say, by this stage, I didn't actually want to sit next to him. You acquire a kind of an inbuilt radar over the years. If a man gives off a funny sort of vibe, if he seems aggressive, you don't want to put yourself next to him.
You're going to the
I'm
other side of
sure
the
a lot of
carriage.
the other side of the carriage, not sitting next to him and his very tired suitcase. But this young woman and I end up looking at each other, our eyes kind of widening with shock and talking about the fact that chivalry was dead. And the week after, another incident happened which sort of cemented it for me. I was on an even more crowded carriage, so crowded that I couldn't go over and march over to help this woman, but she was wearing a mask, which of course no one's doing anymore, and she had not a hair on her head. And I thought, it looks to me like she's undergoing chemotherapy or some kind of medical treatment. Nobody offered her a seat, nobody. And she looked quite shaky. And I was so upset to see somebody who's not just in heels and is a middle-aged woman, but someone who's unwell, obviously unwell, not being given a seat. And I think that's the thing about chivalry. Although we think of it as a courtesy that men extend to women, I think it's more than that. I think that there's a general courtesy and tolerance and kindness which it's been killed off over the years.
Yes, I think this is an important point because we often think of chivalry in the context of a relationship, a romantic relationship, how people treat one another, but it certainly doesn't have to be in that context. Really, at its fundamental, chivalry is good manners, which it seems from your two experiences a lot of people are lacking.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think something has changed. I don't quite know when the rot set in, but I do think that women are partly to blame. I'm not going to say that feminism has completely killed off chivalry, but I think that's a part of it. You see, chivalry, it's an old medieval code, isn't it? It comes from a chivalric code where knights would honour women, help the poor, be brave, etc. And I think a lot of feminists have felt that's incompatible with feminism, which in a way it is, because if you treat the sexes differently, that's the literal definition of sexism or sexual discrimination. You're treating them differently. And of course, baked into the idea of chivalry is that men who are the dominant sex would protect the weaker sex. Of course, that's how it was then. Now a lot's changed. And I think that women have made a mistake in thinking that they need to respect these sorts of courtesies that men extend to them. Now, I used to do it. I used to do it all the time. I would say no if somebody offered me a seat. I think actually as a young woman, you get offered a seat more than when you're older. That's my experience anyway. But I would say no. I don't know if I actually sneered at men or said, educate yourself, but I bet I was giving off that vibe. Hands up. I didn't need a man to open a door for me. I didn't need him to carry a bag. I didn't want his seat. Now I'm 50. I kind of do. I appreciate it. I love the fact that my sons are tall enough to reach things off the high shelf, or they carry things without me asking, because there is a respect in which the sexes are different. We are physically different. And I think that acknowledging that and being courteous about it is a good thing. It shouldn't be seen as an insult. I think that particular brand of feminism that I used to exude when I was younger came from a lack of experience. And I think that feminism malfunctioned, as it were, when I had children, because there's no bigger reminder of your difference than when you're pregnant, you give birth and you breastfeed, and you are reliant basically, normally, on the man to be the provider and to look after you for a period of time. I think that was a big change for me. And I think the other thing that I've noticed is this general lack of courtesy, which is, like I say, about more than a difference between men and women. It's something that's crept into all aspects of public life. And it's really sad. I think we do need to resurrect chivalry.
Your article got me thinking about my own experiences and my conversations with my girlfriends in my 20s as opposed to my 30s. And I really resonate with what you're saying, that there was certainly a time where the attitude was, we're absolutely going to split the bill. He's absolutely not opening the door because I have to show my independence. I just think when you become a bit more nuanced about it all, it's kind of people just thoughtfully indicating to each other that they care or that they value somebody, or in the sense of strangers, just that they're doing a nice thing. You get home at the end of the day and you think, gosh, I was helpful. I was a decent person on the tube. I was a decent person on the bus. And I agree with you, I think, that women should bear some of the responsibility. I do wonder, however, Laura, if men should bear a bit more of the responsibility. I think it's been very convenient, perhaps, for some men that the expectation has been taken off of them, and that they perhaps don't feel so inclined now that they don't feel like it's expected. Your sons, obviously, being the counterexample here.
And I think there are lots of them. I mean, I shared this article on LinkedIn. It was nice to share something that was, I thought, a bit lighter than my normal fare. But my goodness, this has got men really angry. I think a lot of people, they've done that thing of they've read the title and they haven't read the article. So there are lots of men complaining on my LinkedIn that chivalry is dead and it's women's fault. I'm like, yes, sir, read the article. And I think that there is a certain brand of man, like my tube oaf, who feels quite happy and entitled to sit on the seat. I think he's glad the expectation's gone. I don't think it ever suited him in the first place. He loves planting his backside on the moquette seat rather than a noble steed. He's very happy to have a beer can and not a sword in his hand. He looked pretty comfortable and he had no shame at all about telling me I couldn't have a seat. He had no idea what my need might be, or whether I was ill, nothing. Yeah, so there is a certain kind of person who is taking this and running with it. But then if I'm going to put some criticism onto men, it's that they need to toughen up a little bit. Now, I talked to one chap I know about this story, and he said, well, yeah, I used to offer my seat and I don't anymore because women kept turning me down. And, if they've come across a few women who were like Laura when she was 18, 19, 20, they may be thinking, well, screw you. I offered you a seat and I'm not doing it again. You can stand. But the thing about courtesy and kindness is you shouldn't be knocked back so easily. Just keep going. That's the way to resurrect it. People can rediscover their own manners. Otherwise, what you get is we want a circle of love. We don't want to be passing on negativity the whole time. You talked about coming home and you feel I helped somebody. There's no greater feeling, is there? But you have to pay it forward. You have to keep spreading it around.
Yeah. And not everybody's going to ask. Certainly, actually, most people aren't going to ask, and you have to be prepared to have your kindness rejected. But it's a risk that I think, ideally you want to take. Laura, I suppose my last question to you, if I may, is you say your sons are growing up to learn about chivalry. Do you think there's going to be a reverse here? Do you think perhaps women, realizing that they have a role to play in this, are now correcting and they're going to be raising their sons to be the next chivalrous generation? Perhaps there's something to look forward to.
I don't know. I think there's all kinds of corrections that are going on, actually. So thinking not just about my sons, but all the teenage boys I'm exposed to through them. While I'd say they've got their manners about them, I think a lot of young men are actually, they're kind of swinging the other way. They're frightened of what happens between men and women. Will a woman pin a complaint upon them? Will she say that they looked at her the wrong way? I mean, you've got to remember on the tube, there have been posters up as well saying that staring is an unwanted intrusion. I mean, it's gone quite far. It's quite hard for young men now to know how they should behave because they're told that even looking at a woman is wrong. And, I heard one young man say, not my son's, but another, that he would be scared of making a move on a woman unless she's written down first that he can. So I think that there are all kinds of swings and corrections going on, and it's not all good. Otherwise, you wouldn't see the rise of a phenomenon as well, like Andrew Tate, who's pushing a really kind of hyper masculine, braggadocio version of masculinity. I don't think there've been enough good male role models, to be honest, high profile masculine role models for young men. And that's the role of men to take up that role, actually.
I think that's a very good point because, especially when it comes to role models, celebrities, and the rest of it. I mean, I am still in shock and awe when I discover that a celebrity couple has been together for 25 years. That shouldn't be surprising, but this idea that to be strong, to be masculine, to be chivalrous is to show respect to women and to treat women well. And you're right, unfortunately, those role models do feel like they've been dwindling, and I guess we just really need to go back to basics here.
We do. Chivalry, the chivalric code.
Laura, thanks so much for joining Spectator TV.